Hello, welcome back. A little bit different today. Basically, I introduced someone to the game, and then what they said is they were trying to find some information on the game, but they couldn't really find it anywhere. So I'm just going to go through the basics. So if you're new to the game, then this is a perfect stream for you to watch. It's going to be like a little bit of a tutorial, and I'm going to go really down to the basics. So W, S and AD, obviously, to move around in Stormworks, like so. Okay, moving this is like running speed. It's not sprinting speed, it's just normal running speed, I'd say, or jogging speed. It's quite normal in the game. You can crouch by pressing left control, which is good for getting into small gaps. Sometimes if you jump in and you're trying to get through like a small area, it's good to jump and crouch. You can kind of do that. Spacebar is obviously to jump. Okay, so it's your normal standard sort of PC controls for movement there. Quite basic. So you can sprint. So left shift, as you could guess, is to run around in a sprint. It does depend on what you're holding in your hands. If you're holding like a torch, or if you're holding a rifle, for example, it might slow you down and change your running speed. So if you find yourself running really slow, then you may need to just change the item. I'm going through my items here with the middle mouse button. The middle mouse button is to cycle through the different inventory items that you have. You can only carry at this moment in time, you can only carry 4 items. You can wear an item of clothing, and you can hold a tool in your hand. You can't hold more than one sort of large tool, but you can carry quite a few smaller items. Okay, so the torch that I'm holding in my hand, if I did want to drop that on the floor, then I press backspace. Backspace drops that on the ground like so, and then you can press Q or E, as it says there in the tooltip, to pick that back up. So backspace is to drop any of these items. It also works for interacting, so I use the E button there to interact with the door. If I was to grab, so look, there's an Arctic top there, so E or Q again to wear that. If I wanted to drop that on the floor, I can press the backspace, or I can press the E button, or if I wanted to press the E button, I can put that straight back into there. If I'm wearing this, I can't wear this. If I want to wear this, then I need to either drop the Arctic suit or put it back, and then I can come and grab this suit like so. So you can only wear one item. This is a large item I was on about. You can't store this in your inventory here. So if I was holding a welder, I wouldn't be able to grab a fire extinguisher, and I wouldn't be able to grab a hose. I'd have to drop that or put that back before I could grab one of these, like so. Ropes interact the same way, like the interact button. So there's a rope anchor there. If I'm holding the rope in my hand, then I will press, let me just get it, it's a little bit finicky. Okay, so that's left mouse button actually, not E, and then I'll find somewhere to connect that up to using left mouse button again. And if I press the middle mouse button at this point and scroll away from the rope, it'll just disconnect everything like so. Okay, so E and Q is to interact with most things and to grab objects like this here. But if I wanted to like sit down in a seat like this, for example, then obviously I'd use the F key. You can use left mouse button to use items seat. If I press F again, it's going to get me out of my seat. So that's a little bit different, the F button, to get on and off the seats. That throws some people off sometimes. Okay, yeah, cool. So if you sat in a vehicle, like this one for example, I press E button there to open this door. That uses a sliding rail, which you could just see there when I went through, which we'll go into later on. So if I'm sat in this seat, for example, you'll see I've used some monitors here, and we'll explain how they work. But if I press tab, then that switches between third person and first person when I press the tab key. So you can switch just by pressing tab. Same if you're walking on foot as well. Tab key to go from first to third person. You want to return a vehicle back to the workbench, then you just press the B button and that'll send that vehicle back. But we don't want to do that right now. So when you sat down in a vehicle like this one, I'm not going to go into what the controls are, because these controls for seats are whatever the person that built that vehicle set it up to be, and we can go into that into more detail. It's typically A and D for roll, W and S for pitch. If you're driving a vehicle, it's obviously A and D for turning left and right. Usually pretty standard, but that can be changed whatever the user or the creator decides, and we'll learn that when we're going to logic. Alright, when you first load up the game, you'll be introduced to obviously the main screen. Let's go into that. You'll press new game and you'll be introduced to 3 game modes. Okay, you got career, classic, and custom. So the career mode So we look at career mode, for example. The career mode's a good place to start if you're a new player. In this mode, you start with like limited building blocks, and you start with a limited amount of money. So it can ease you into the game by teaching you the basics. It has a little bit of a tutorial built in. You pretty much like spawn in a lighthouse unless it's changed since I've done this video. It gives you a little boat, and it gives you a couple of missions just to get you going. So if you're completely brand new to the game, go to new game, go to career mode. And it'll slowly ease you in. It gives you a nice little starter boat and teaches you a couple of things. It teaches you basics and about adding new blocks over time, and it's not that overwhelming. It also teaches you kind of how to use the map and navigate from one location to another. So if you're new completely to the game, career mode is definitely a good place to start. You basically, yeah, like I said, so you basically start on a small island with a small dock where you can build your ship. You'll frequently be offered missions, okay, and I think the first and second mission is usually the same mission, like all the time, because that's like the tutorial mission, so to speak. And it's your main way of getting new blocks and materials, as well as to earn some cash. That's how you earn money in the game, by completing missions. If you're in career mode, you can also earn money in career mode by finding loot boxes, which are usually hidden around in the little islands scattered around, or in special locations. You can also get money by trading if you've been in the game a little bit longer. Alternative, like I said, yeah, you know, you can find loot, and when you're driving around in the ocean, you might find boxes just floating in the sea. If you walk into them, they will also give you money as well, sometimes up to 2,000, sometimes up to 8,000. But as you progress through the game, you'll discover new islands, and you'll be able to purchase, if you have enough money, different islands. These different islands give you the ability to fast travel to them, and they'll also offer you new building locations. Depending on the islands that you bought, you might be able to build larger ships, or you might be able to build different types of vehicles. So when you initially start, you start in a dock, a boat dock, but once you've got more money, you might buy another island that might have a runway, for example, so then you'll be able to build air vehicles or ground vehicles, assuming you've got the necessary building blocks unlocked, obviously, like wheels and stuff like that. So as you're building and as you're progressing in the game, new and more difficult missions will be offered as you unlock more islands. It's advisable to open your mission menu, which is a default end, but I don't know if that still works. Try it, but it tells you anyway on the screen what the missions require and what type of vehicle you need. But again, the new missions, they come by the missions the islands that you've unlocked. If you find yourself doing the same missions all the time, maybe look at buying a new island. So that's career mode in a nutshell. I never used classic career mode. Okay, yeah, so it's like career mode but creative, and then custom mode. So custom mode's like the mode that mainly a lot of people use. If you're a builder, or you want to build, or you want to learn how to build, then you're going to be using custom mode. Custom mode allows you to change the world settings in game, allowing you to adjust the weather, the time, teleport. You can use infinite electric or not if you want to. It's unlike career mode. You can respawn when you die. You don't need to have money. You got unlimited amount of money. Vehicles are free to spawn, so you can go onto the Steam Workshop and just download people's creations there and just spawn them in without having to worry about having enough money to build them or to buy them. All the islands are unlocked immediately in custom mode, which is basically creative mode, and the workbenches and everything are free as well. And you can also spawn your own or delete your own missions. So that's pretty much the three headings. Creative mode's like, it's a bit like career mode, but there's certain things turned off, so it's a bit like custom mode with a couple of less options. So we're going to go into building soon. Let me just go back into game. Okay, so obviously you got new game, which is where you'll find your tutorial in the career here. Best place if you're a new player, career. You can load up an old save from here, but if you've got like a friend online, or if you've got a server that you want to play in, like the social gaming server, for example, and you go to multiplayer, click on internet, you can type a couple of letters depending on if anyone else has got that name, and you'll see there you got social gaming server pop up. It tells you here what DLC you need to be able to play in that server and whether it's password protected or not. Obviously this password will be changed by the time you watch this video. There we go. If you're completely brand new to the game, then you'll get introduced to this screen here where you can edit your character's appearance. I'm not going to go into this, you just need to have a play with it. You basically go across here, pick different stuff on the side, however you want your character to look. When you first spawn in, you'll probably just want to get straight into the game. But depending on like what you do in the game, if you want to roleplay and stuff like that, then there's loads of different options for characters, or you can just hit the randomize button. Okay. So we are back in the game. We're going to head over here. Our vehicle's still there. Right, So vehicle wise then, yeah, it's called Stormworks Search and Rescue, but nowadays it's not all about search and rescuing. So there's loads of different types. So you've got air vehicles that you can build. So every vehicle in this game is what you've built yourself or other players have built, and you can download them off the Steam Workshop if you need to. This is a helicopter I built quite a while ago. So you got air vehicles, so you can build helicopters, you can build aeroplanes, you can build Millennium Falcons, you can build TIE fighters, you can build airship, you can build anything air. Land vehicles, you can build tanks, you can build jeeps, you can build trucks, you can build forklift trucks, you can any land vehicle you can if you can think about it, and you can build it, right? And sea vehicles, fishing ships, you can build aircraft carriers, you can build submarines. You can build it if it exists. You can build it. Pirate ships, cargo transporters, oil tankers, any vehicle. You can build jets, fighter jets, tornadoes, Harriers, VTOLs. The list goes on. Now let's look at building then. So you're like, all right, cool, Gav. We can build all this really awesome stuff in this game. 1 second. What is this? What did I just see over here? It's a pug. No, it's not. It's a Yorkshire Terrier. Right, it's ours. Let's crack on with the tutorial. Alright, so you're thinking, right, okay, so we can build jets, we can build VTOLs, we can build boats and helicopters and all that cool stuff, but how do I build? Where's the build menu? What key button is it? Workbench. All vehicles get spawned in the workbench. And look at that dog. Like, everything comes, they're yappy dogs. Like, everything comes from the workbench, and this is what a workbench looks like. Okay, so this is the workbench. There'll be a workbench at docks, airfields, and just generally like garages, everywhere there'll be a workbench, and you just run up to one of these, press E or Q, and then you'll enter the build mode. So this is build mode. They come in different sizes. So workbenches, like I said, that you'll find them at docks, hangars, train stations, and workbenches at different locations have different sizes for their construction area. Sometimes they're quite small. So if you go to a train workbench, a train workbench will be relatively small compared to this type of workbench. This is probably like a medium one. The big blue hangars that you can find at Multiplayer Island are like the largest ones. So you'll have like medium sized docks, you've got mainland docks, you've got medium hangars, you've got small docks, small hangars, and you've got the train depots. In the build menu, okay, you'll see you pretty much always start with these generic blocks on the bottom, and you can see that when I move my mouse around, I can place that around. Okay, it's coming up with red because I can't place it here because it's an angle, but if I wanted to, I could place it on the side here. I'm using A and D and W and S to move around. Right mouse button is to look around. If I hold shift, okay, it slows down the camera. If I wanted to try and get into like a little small space and I want to slow the camera down, I hold shift. If I actually press left alt, okay, oh no, I re-keybinded it, but yeah, left alt I think is to speed up the camera as well. So I'll go through some of the modes. So at the moment, if I put this brick here, it'll just be on the one side. On the right hand side here, you've got symmetry. So if I hit this red button, for example, the X symmetry, then I'll be placing this block on both sides of the helicopter as I build it, like so. I'm just left clicking to put the block on. Okay, that's symmetry mode. There's different types of symmetry mode. They'll allow symmetry across like 3 different planes. So I've got the X plane, press the green button. Okay, you'll notice that's quite high up, but that'll be, is that the Y plane? Yeah, the Y plane. If that's not in the right position you want it in, so let's say if I wanted the green Y plane to be here in line with these white blocks, and if I click this here, look, the move widget, then I can bring this down to there, and then now when I place this block, it's going to put it on the top and the bottom. The symmetry mode is a really useful tool, especially the red one. So this red symmetry mode is probably the most useful symmetry you will want to use in this game, especially if you're building ships. Yo bro, you can move the symmetry. Yeah, didn't you know that? Sweet. That means my tutorial's helping people out, right? Yeah, so you can move the symmetry left and right. So if it's not quite working out for you, or if you just want to build, I don't know, I use it for example. So let's say I built my helicopter, but then I want to build like something on the wing, and I want to build it symmetrical, then I'll build that, and then you can move that. You can shift that back across. Pardon me. You've played 400 hours, you didn't know. Yep, you can turn that off here. So the move widget is on the right hand side here, and then obviously you got the Z widget, which is the front and back. I don't really know why. I mean, there's probably loads of good reasons why you'd need to use the Z. I've not really used the Z much myself. You probably might want to use it maybe if you're building a truck or a train, maybe a carriage, and or maybe with a truck you just want to get the back cargo bit right. You might just want to do that, but usually I use the X. Okay, you got sectioning. So if you're building a large ship, for example, and you just want to check to make sure something's right on the inside, then what you can do is you can section it off. So if I section it on the X, you can see I've split this helicopter in half now. But let's say I want to find something really, let's say I want to find something that's kind of like just in there and I can't quite find it. Then what I can do is I'll move this and I'll keep looking. I'll be like, okay, where's that bit I'm looking for? I'll move it. And then I'll be like, okay, there it is. And then you can kind of see the block there that you want, and then you can either delete that or you can bring it back out. So the sectioning is quite a nice tool if you just want to get inside a build, or if you've built like a custom engine and something's not quite working out and you don't want to delete everything around it. You can kind of just section it off, see what's inside. You can section on the Y angle as well, so you can cut it top to bottom. If you want to work inside your helicopter but you don't want to delete the roof, you just want like a better view of what's going on, then you can do that. Let me turn these off. Yeah, so I don't know, if you want to work inside your helicopter but you don't want a small space, then you can do this, section off the Y, and then basically you got the section, obviously the Z section in as well after the same thing. So it's not too bad. Right, let's delete that because we don't need this on anymore. Okay, so painting. So obviously you got the paintbrush up here. So the cool thing about the paintbrush is obviously you can come here to the left and you can pick your reds. Okay, you can pick your oranges if you want. You can also open this up. So if I wanted additive, so additive's just for lights. So if I try and paint like let's say green here, for example, that's not working at all. But if I try and paint the green there where the lights are, then that's going to change the colour of the lights. If I wanted to change that back, then I'll do this. You can replace the colour. So if I replace colour, then basically anything I click on now, it replaces the entire colour for that, the entirety of the vehicle, whatever that colour is. So if red, for example, if I click on this red square, anything else that's red will turn red. So the purple windows, if I click this purple here, anything that's that purple colour will turn yellow, like so, for example. Let's try and turn that back to a purple. Right, and obviously you got plane fill. So plane fill basically does the plane. So if I click here, it should just do this side, like so. And if I clicked here, it probably might just do this little section there. So it's just going to do a plane. Painting also works with symmetrical mode on. So if I go to the other side, you'll see it's copied everything I just did. Other things you can do is if you're doing loads of painting and you don't want to keep coming back here to the left of the screen, you can just, so if I press left control and click, copies the colour that you want. So you don't have to go back to the side every single time. You can just left control, left click, and you can copy these different colours. So if I want black, I'll left control, click, and I've got black. If I wanted any other colour, let's say I want the blue back, and I've got the blue. So you don't need to keep going here. If I want white, click on the white, I've got my white back. They don't teach you that anywhere. Okay, so now moving on to the selection grid. So the selection grid's pretty cool, right? So I've had to use it a couple of times. So let's say you're building this helicopter, for example. Right, let me just move this helicopter forwards. So moving your helicopter forwards is another tool you can use. So if you start building in the middle here and then you realise that actually that's the front of your vehicle, and when you get here you're only halfway built it, then what you can do is you can click the move tool. And you can move that all the way up. This is also useful if you're playing in multiplayer and people are spawning in multiple vehicles, because you might want to move yours all the way to that side, so then yours spawns there and then your friend's vehicle might spawn here on the left. But let's just say I built this helicopter and I'm like, oh, you know what, I really want that tail to be a little bit longer, but I don't want to have to like rebuild this entire thing. Then what you can do is you can use the selection grid here. Again, there's a couple of different techniques to this, right? So you can move it into place like this, and then you can resize it by clicking this on the left. And this is one way you can do it. I'm going to show you another way as well. So this is one way I can do this. So obviously I've I've highlighted the bit I want to keep. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger because I can't see the rear rotor there. I need to move it in a bit, I think. There you go. So let's say I want this bit here. I want to make my tail longer. I'm going to go to move and cut, and then I'm going to drag this across to there, for example, and then I'm going to paste it in, and now my tail, I've moved my tail further back. Obviously from this point, I press left control and click there to turn that block blue. I'll just extend my tail like so, and then I've got a slightly longer helicopter. So that's how easy it is to do stuff like that. If I didn't like it after, once you've done this, this is one thing I always forget to do, and you need to be aware of it. One sec. So see how I'm on delete mode at the moment here. Something I didn't tell you is if you just press X button changes from delete mode to build mode. So when you spawn something in using the selection tool, see how when I hover over that, this turns grey, and when I hover over this, the other side turns grey? That's because these are not part of the same vehicle. So if I spawn this in right now, the tail's just going to fall off, right? Because they're not actually connected. So what you need to do after you've used the selection tool is you need to go to the merge at the top here next to it, and then you need to merge these two by left clicking and then left clicking, and now they're merged. They're one unit now. But let's say you didn't like this. Okay, so you don't like this, so you delete that. Now there's another way to use the selection tool. So I'm going to reset this. I've cleared it completely. I'm going to move this out of the way. If I press the left control button like so, I can select that one block, and see how it's deleted all this, so I don't have to resize it. And if I press shift, it's going to remember that block and also add up to there, for example. And let's say I think, oh, you know, I want the side, so I'm going to hold shift again, I'm going to click the side. I'm going to hold shift again, I'm going to click this side. And it's remembering, it's just adding what I'm clicking basically. Let's say I want to add the back. Okay, so I didn't have to resize it that time. All I had to do was left shift. So let's say, for example, I want this front part of the helicopter. I'll left control there. I'll go to the front of the helicopter. I'll press shift to there. I'll press shift on this side, and then I'll press shift on the bottom. Shift left click. Again, I've just got the front of the helicopter, and then I can do the fine tuning if I want with the resize button. But I actually want this piece over here, so instead of moving that all the way across and wasting time, I'm just going to left click on there. I'm going to shift click on the back, shift click on the top, on the sides, and actually the bottom here to get this. And just to make sure I've got it properly, I'm just going to resize it up a little bit, check it's right. Yep. Okay, and then once I've got it, move and copy, and I'm going to bring that back in. Obviously you can use that as well if something's a little bit too long and you think, oh, you know what, that's too long, I might shorten it down. Instead of deleting it all and trying to rebuild it, you can just cut it off. Paste it, and then once you've pasted it, remember it's not merged, so remerge them back together. That's pretty much your selection tool. In fact, it's not your selection tool in a nutshell. So what you can also do with the selection tool is, if you was building, let's say a truck that carries another vehicle or something, you can load workshop items from the selection tool into your current build. So a good example of why you'd want to do that is, let's say you go on the workshop, and on the workshop you find let's say you find a Genesis Hellfire missile that you really want to have on your helicopter, but you don't want to build an entire helicopter around it because you want to build a helicopter. Then you'll use that. So you'll go to the selection grid, you'll load in the Hellfire missile, and then you'll attach it where you require it to be attached to your helicopter, and then you'll just hit the paste button, and then your helicopter now has a Hellfire missile which you grabbed off the workshop. If you don't like it, you can press Ctrl Z. Ctrl Z will undo, just like any other game. If you do like it, then you can just paste it back in like so. Okay, you can also, because you grabbed it from the workshop, you can paste in as many of them as you want to, and you can press Ctrl Z to get rid of them all. Right, what's next? That's the selection grid. Right, so microcontrollers are a little bit more complicated, but we can go into that. We'll go into that later when we get to microcontrollers. Okay, so what we'll do is look at some of the blocks. Okay, so there's different game mechanics. Okay, so you've got pivots. So this is a pivot, for example. And what? In fact, let me go to a new vehicle right now. Right, so pivots. Pivots will rotate something all the way around. There's two types of pivots. Okay, you got a compact robotic pivot. And what a compact robotic pivot will do is, in fact we can show you, why not? I'll spend a little bit of time doing this, it won't take too long. Okay, so anything that's mechanical or has this exclamation mark here needs electric. So you need to make sure you have the right things for this to work. So what we'll do is we'll spawn a battery in. I'm pressing tab just to bring up this menu, by the way. Okay, so we've got battery there. That brings us on to logic. So logic we'll go into a little bit later, but you need to make sure you do connect things using logic. So this is our pivot. Okay, it's now got electric from these batteries, but it needs something to turn it. So if this were the, is that the, what type of, okay, this is the 25 one. So if this were the door that you wanted to build on your vehicle, let me turn symmetrical mode off. Okay, so if you wanted to build a door, for example, you'd use the compact robotic pivot because it only rotates, as it says here, look, the pivot has a range of motion of 0.25 turns in both directions. So it can either go forwards or it can open backwards, but it can't turn 180. So it's pretty much like a door or a hinge. But it won't work on a button. It needs, if you click on the actual, if you press this select tool up here, you click on the door, you've got different settings, so you can change the speed, you can change how much power it's got, and the gear ratio. The higher the gear, the stronger it is, and the slower it'll turn. The lower the gear, it'll be like quicker, but it won't be as strong. Right, so this door won't work with a button, so what you do need to do is you might need to use something called a numerical switch block, which is a microcontroller, which we was going into earlier. These get a little bit more complicated, but a numerical switch block is like really good for doing things like forwards and backwards motion. Can I ask a question if you know how to make anti-gravity? Anti-gravity, yes I do. I do know how to make anti-gravity on this game. So numerical switch block, and you're going to need some number inputs, which are the constant number. Again, this is the microcontroller. This is where people like get really lost when they have to start doing microcontrollers, but it's not too difficult. The best way I think about it is this needs a number input, right? A numerical switch block is going to switch from one number to another. Currently it's on 0. 0 is the normal bog standard setting. If I was to put this, if you look at these arrows here, you've got a minus and a plus. So if I was to put this on a -1, it would turn the door in towards the microcontrollers. If I was to put this on a +1, it would turn the door that way, and I can show you an example of that now. So I'm going to put this, I'm going to make this a 1, and then this one here, we're going to make a -1, and we need to use logic to connect this up. So this is our number 1, and we want to have that to be set. So when we switch it on, we want it to be on the 1. When it's off, we want it to be on the -1, and then this is the output, and that's going to go to the pivot. We should actually change that to a 0 because it might just break as soon as we spawn it in, but we'll see. And then if you hover over this, it says we need an on and off switch. So we're going to need to get one of them. So we'll use a button, a toggle button in our case, and we'll put that at the side there. Again, that's not going to work unless you use a bit of logic. So some items have an output and an input, but an output can only go to an input, and an input can only go to an output. It won't let you do it any other way. That's why all these disappear when I click this. If you actually hold control when you do this, you can go to multiple things like so, but it will delete the other ones. Off, on. Okay, so we want that button to go to there, and it needs electric as well, so electric for my battery, and we'll give that a quick test, and that's pivots pretty much. Well, that's compact pivots. So see how it's gone over here to the buttons? That's because it's on the off position. So if we turn that on, it's going to go all the way around now to that position, and then here, which was the build position, that's a 0 setting. That's compact pivot. So what's the difference between a compact pivot and a normal pivot? I'll show you now. So if we put a compact velocity pivot down, okay, these pivots, they don't get stuck. These pivots can turn forever, an unlimited amount of times basically, and that's the only difference. So you'll probably use these if you want to make some kind of custom wheel. If you want to make a rotating satellite dish, if anything that you want to have rotating constantly is what you'll use this for. So maybe you might want to put a sonar on there, but sonars kind of rotate themselves anyway. But let's just spawn this in. In fact, let's put some blocks on it. Let me get a good example for you. If I put that on there, for example, spawn that in. Are normal pivots stronger than compact pivots? Put a massive radar on it, it'll probably fall over. So yeah, that's a compact pivot, and obviously I'll set that for -1 and 1. That's just going to change the direction, but they'll spin forever. I could put a massive radar on it. I don't know if it'll work though. Let's have a look. Okay, so obviously that's happening because the radar dish is heavier than the base it's standing on, because physics is a thing in this game. There you go. Look, we've got what's that? Oh yeah, the dog. Yeah, so we've got a Starlink satellite flying 100,000 degrees in a circle, so we better duck, and then if we want that to change direction, there you go, it changes direction. So that's the difference between a compact pivot and a velocity pivot. Other mechanical pieces that you have in Stormworks are tracks. So these are tracks here. Tracks work very similar to the pivots. So for example, if we put this here, in fact let's put it, yeah, we'll put it there. You'll see it's got a plus and a minus. At the moment it's on the minus setting, for example. We'll just put more track on. I'll show you a really neat trick with track as well, actually, if I can. Let me try and show you this. So I get this door. Okay, obviously it won't work because of the radar dish. One sec. Okay, so if you wanted to, let's say you was building a helicopter and you wanted it to have a sliding door, for example, then you could use sliding track. But you can use sliding track for all sorts of different things. This is just one example, so let me just bang this over here. It needs electric as well. Spawn that in. Okay, so we've got our sliding door here. Stormworks, as we know, has the most realistic physics it has, dude. And then we press this, and obviously that's going to slide across to the other side now. Our sliding door. And if we press it again, it's going to reverse it because of this number here. It's going to bring it back. But there is some really cool tricks you can do with these, if they still allow it. Okay, so let's say, for example, let's say your creation is kind of tight for space, right? So let's say we've got a wall here, and you don't actually have a lot of space to build track because you might have some pieces there. So this track can be built anywhere you want it to be. It doesn't really matter, right? So if we do this, let me delete this, let me delete this. I'm going to delete all of this, and I'm going to delete this, right? Now I'm going to build this here. This track is hidden away, but it's still part, this is still part of that track. So if we spawn this in now, you see how that's over there. So we can hide that anywhere we want in our creation, as long as it was connected when we built it. And now if we press this button here, it's still going to work. So you don't need to have it actually connected. So if you want to hide your track, that's a little trick you can use to hide track. Right there. Another little trick you can do with track, okay, is you could actually make it so it comes out first and then goes across by just basically adding more of these on, for example, if that makes sense. But we don't. I'll show you. Okay, so we want that to come out one block, and then we want it to go across. Alright, so that's wrong because I need it to be the plus. Okay, so I forgot to mention rotation. So I'm using the L key to rotate this way. It tells you anyway on the tooltips if you don't turn them off. K and then J. And I'm trying to rotate so I get the plus facing that direction, so it's the same as the one underneath. So then it does what I want it to do basically. We're going to need to connect electric up to this. We're going to need to connect some numbers. Okay, then now what we're going to do is, at the moment this is connected to that, which we don't want. We want it to be connected to this. So we're going to have to rebuild this a little bit. Okay, there we go. So we can delete this now, we don't need this anymore. And then what we're going to do is build that there. Okay, then now what should happen is it should slide out first and then go across. If I've done this properly. It might not work, let's see. Okay, so it looks like it, oh no, it's in. Okay, so it's in there. It's a little bit funny, maybe I didn't connect electrical properly, but we'll see. So I'm going to press the button, and it's going to come out. That's wonky.